Today I'm going to be talking about motivational interviewing, and in particular how you can use motivational interviewing to help someone adhere to a long-term exercise plan. This is a topic that is really interesting to me. I do use motivational interviewing in my job, which is really cool, and I find it's a really good tool. So motivational interviewing to me is about sitting with a client, chatting with them about what's brought them to this point where they want to start to engage with an exercise plan, and getting them to really talk about what change they'd like to have, getting them to explore what's motivating them to make a change in their life, why they want to exercise, and kind of exploring what's making them discontent with the current situation. So not kind of explaining to them the benefits of exercise, or even initially not even telling them that not exercising is going to be bad for them, because that can often put people off. And this is the first sort of concept of motivational interviewing, which is to resist the writing reflex. So if someone comes to you with a problem, you might want to try and help fix it for them. And motivational interviewing really puts the energy back towards the client for them to assess what they're not happy with, what kind of changes they'd like to make. The writing reflex, so telling someone what they should be doing and how they should be doing it, can often make them retreat from the engagement, and it can also make them dig in and resist the change that they really want to make. It's also a good time at the start of a motivational interview to say, like, are you happy with where things are at? And if they're happy with where things are at, then they're not motivated to change. So if you can detect that there is some motivation there, then asking them, what's motivating you? Why are you so motivated at this time? And that's when they'll often talk about they're motivated because they want to exercise, because they want to feel fitter, and try and get them to talk about what their goals are. And then you can reflect that back to them about how that fits in with their values, and then they feel like they're going on the plan towards where they want to go in their life. So I think I've really just talked about the second part of motivational interviewing there, which is to understand the client's motivation. So what's brought them to see you today? Also, it is bringing into the session or the interview that autonomy, which is so important from self-determination theory, about letting people feel that they're the ones running the show, that they're the ones making the ideas, that they're the ones making the choices. And if they feel autonomous and if it feels self-generated, then they're more likely to follow through than if it's imposed from someone else. The third part of motivational interviewing is really a lot of empathy and a lot of reflecting back. And explaining, probably here where you can put in when they do reflect how hard it is for them to make the change, or when they really start to be hard on themselves, that they haven't been able to keep up with this rigid gym routine that they planned, and really explaining to them that it's really hard to make these major changes, and helping them kind of maybe even rein in their short-term goals and maybe make it a bit more manageable, so that they can start to feel like they're achieving in achieving their exercise adherence plans. How many times a week is going to be realistic for you? And so sometimes you ask them sort of open questions. So big open questions like, what's motivating you at the moment to exercise? Or tell me, how do you feel after you've exercised? If they can think back to a time when they were exercising more, what benefits they felt from there. That's right, because the fourth concept is to kind of empower the client to make their own choices, which is that autonomy that I was discussing earlier. Another thing that I do that is really useful in motivational interviewing is to really consolidate their strengths. Ask them to think about a time when they have really been able to make a big behavioural change, and really point that out to them as a real strength. So they've done this kind of thing before, they have it in them to do it. Another thing that I like to do in motivational interviewing too is to ask them how they're going to be rewarding themselves for making this massive change, because it is a big effort. If they can give themselves a small reward on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, an experience or something that they like to treat themselves to, so it feels really like they're getting and reinforcing that behavior themselves. In motivational interviewing, you might actually have to say to someone, if you're getting kind of a lot of sort of short answers and not much engagement, you can say, well, maybe it seems like this is not the right time for you. You can sort of challenge them and say, it sounds like exercise, you just don't have time at the moment, or there's too much going on and you can't really make this change. And that will often get the client to go, hang on a minute, actually, no, I really do want to. And then they're trying to convince you of the reasons why they want to make the change and adhere to this exercise. So that them hearing it in their own voice, explaining to you the benefits and what's motivating them, can be really powerful in motivational interviewing. One other thing that I like to do is to kind of let them know that they can try some of these things. So when they've brought up ideas about what they'd like to try and experiment with in making these new changes and adhering to this exercise regime, you can really just tell them, see what feels good to you. You know, you actually don't have to get this perfect, and you then become the expert in what's going to be the best thing to help you adhere to your exercise regime. So they then feel, actually, you know what, I do know a few things and I have made changes before, and so then they feel like, you know what, I can probably do this. So a bit of helping to boost their self-efficacy in this field of adhering to their exercise plan. The thing that I like to do is to remind them that there is no failing at this. They're trying and they're learning the whole time. So if they try something and it doesn't work out, that's not a fail. That is a chance to go, actually, this didn't work. I'm going to try something different to try and to keep going towards my goal to get this exercise as a regular part of my life going forward. When I was first training in motivational interviewing, I did feel like the times when I hadn't done well was when I did try and go in and fix people, or try and suggest things that they could try, or just basically the counsellor doing too much work. So it's a real collaborative approach. So it's a plan that you come up together, but the more you can have the client generate the idea and the plan and let them run with it, the better it's going to be. It's also really good to explore relapse in motivational interviewing. So help them think about how, if they have made some gains and then felt like they have failed again, to let them know that they actually haven't failed, they've been trying. Then asking them some questions like, in the past, when you have had a bit of a slip up, even minimize the relapse and call it a slip up. So in the past, when you have had a slip up and you've had a day or two when you haven't exercised as you would have liked, and you haven't kind of met those goals that you set for yourself, how did you respond? Exploring, so what would you do next time you have a slip up? You know, a slip up doesn't have to mean that you then slide all the way down the slippery slope. A slip up can just mean that you've noticed that you're not where you want to be, where you haven't kind of adhered to your plan as much as you like. And then just noticing that and going, okay, I've noticed it, not to be too hard on yourself, to be compassionate in that moment, and then just to keep going on the plan, and not letting that slip be the reason to kind of throw the towel in. I really enjoyed talking to you about motivational interviewing today and how to help someone increase their exercise adherence. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear about them in the comments, so pop them down below. Big shout out to Dr. Johnny, who will be assessing me for this assignment. I will see you in the next video.